You're listening to The Hikam with Shaykh Zahir Bacchus of the Lotri Foundation. In this podcast, Shaykh Zahir explains the aphorisms from Ibn Ata'illah's famous book of wisdoms, Al-Hikam Al-Ata'iyah, a classical manual of spiritual development. Visit seekershub.org for online courses, our reliable answer service, and engaging media.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allahu alimna ma yanfa'na wa anfa'na bima alimtana wa zidna ilman bi fadlika wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Ameen. So we're on number 25 in this Hikam of Shaykh ibn Ata'illah. I remember he's talking about some of it. He's talking about the etiquette of the servant and how he conceives not so much of telling us of what to do, but telling us or conveying to us how we should conceive of things or how we should think about things, to better our understanding of the things that occur in this world and things that occur to us, or the things that happen to us, because all of it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how you measure it and how you weigh it is important. Is important for us so that we don't lose hope, and that we do not sell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala short, that we lose our certainty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the things that happen, or the things that come to us, good or bad. Keeping that in mind, he says this. He says, "Ma tawaqqafa matlubun anta talibuhu bi rabbika, wa la tayassara al-matlubun anta talibuhu bi nafsik." So he says that nothing will prove difficult if you seek it through your Lord. Nothing will prove to be difficult seeking it through your Lord, if you seek it through your Lord. And nothing will prove easy if you seek it through yourself. Nothing will prove to be easy as long as you seek it through yourself. So the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, we do things in this world, we act, we perform acts of obedience, we perform other acts that perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will lead to the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we apply effort. And those acts that we do and the efforts that we make, it could be fruitful. We can gain success in it. And there's those actions and those things that we do and those efforts that we make that prove to be unsuccessful, at least unsuccessful in our eyes. They prove to be unsuccessful in our eyes. So going back to the beginning of the act or the effort that we make, what is it that we intended, and what is it that we rely upon when we start off the effort that we're going to make, when we start the act that we're going to do, when we start to conceive what we plan for that day or that moment or that week, or what we want to accomplish. What is it in the beginning of it that we rely upon? What is it in the beginning of it that we rely upon? Ibn Ata'illah, he says that nothing will prove difficult if you seek it through Allah, through your Lord. And nothing will prove to be difficult if you seek it through your Lord. And nothing will prove, you won't have taysir, ease, if you seek it through yourself. Seeking it through yourself. So if you want to accomplish something today, in this moment, if you want to, you're going to put some effort to do something, to learn something, to help in some way, to accomplish a goal. You have the intention to do something, to fulfill a need or a want or whatnot. So when you start the action and you're going to accomplish it, are you relying on your knowledge? Are you relying on your skill set? Are you ultimately relying upon your strength? Are you relying on your quwwah, on your power? Are you relying on your physical well-being? Are you relying on your intelligence? What is it that you're relying upon? Ibn Ata'illah in this hikmah, he's making a very fine point, and a very detailed point. The point is that if we examine the things that we do, if we examine the things that we, before we actually start to do them, if we examine our intention, what is our intention behind it? And more importantly, what is it that we're conceiving or we're relying upon? Who is it that we're relying upon? Or what is it that we're relying upon? So in this hikmah, very short hikmah, if you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing is going to be difficult, even if it does not turn out the way that you want it to turn out. But it won't prove difficult. Even if there's challenges that come in the way, even if there's roadblocks that appear before you, it's not still going to be difficult, because the reliance is not on yourself. You're relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perhaps that means that you're going to use something that you learned, a skill set that you gained, an intelligence that Allah has given to you, a strength that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for you. But everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Given that it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's Allah who will cause the thing to be fruitful or not. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who will grant you success in it. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who will make it easy for you. So he says nothing is going to prove difficult once you seek it through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that your reliance is upon Allah. Your reliance is upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whether there's success or whether there's failure, if dunyawi, there's dunyawi success or there's dunyawi failure, it still will not prove difficult, because you have allowed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, or in yourself, you have given the authority to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the outcome of it. You've given over the outcome to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have not relied on your own strength and ability or intelligence for the outcome to happen. If you do that, then the resultant state's going to happen. Anyone who, why does it say nothing proves difficult once you seek it through Allah subhanahu, you seek it through your Lord? Because it's about the ending that matters. It's about the end that matters. And it's about how you started. The next hikmah talks about this. It's about the end that matters. What is your state in the end. It's determined by how your state is in the beginning of it. It's determined by how it is. Someone who seeks something through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever the end result is, they are still contented. And so you won't think that what has occurred and challenges or whatever has occurred throughout the process of what you wanted to accomplish or what you wanted to do, you would not think that it was difficult. Because you have sought it through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you relied upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you won't see it as a means of, you won't get disappointed. Because if one knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of every matter, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of the success of the matter, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of the facilitating of the matter. If you know that, and you're just the means of it, your effort is a means, your strength is a means, your intelligence is a means, your skill set is a means. At the end, no matter what happens, the servant is not going to be disappointed. The servant is not going to be disappointed. The servant is not going to fall into states of sorrow or anxiety and so on. States of sorrow and anxiety falls when someone believes that what they have is sufficient for the matter to be accomplished. That's when sorrow occurs. Sorrows and disappointment and so on happens when the servant believes that they have what it takes to accomplish something. That's when sorrow and disappointment occurs. Someone who relies on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how does it not prove difficult? Because no matter what occurs, the result is they are not disappointed. Because one cannot be disappointed with one's Lord. Because you understand, if you put your tawakkul, your trust in Allah, then He is the one who is sufficient. As He says in Quran, whoever puts his trust in Allah, is His sufficiency. It's sufficient for the person. So no matter what happens, no matter what the result is of the matter, one does not feel disappointed because one knows that Allah has chosen what is best for him or her. One knows that whatever occurred is the best because Allah chose it. Allah subhanahu chose it. And one is not disappointed in oneself and says that we should, this is something, or get disappointed in other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on. Because that's the negative impact of failure. The negative impact of failure for people who rely on themselves is to blame others for their failure. This is society in general. That's the negative impact of failure. The negative impact of failure is that one sees and one not only blames oneself, which can lead to issues, but negative impact of failure is that one starts to blame other people for it. One blames, colleagues at work. One blames family members. This is what happens. When that happens, it's because of what happened in the beginning before they set out to do what they wanted to do. It happens in the beginning of it. It happens right at the beginning that their mind and their hearts was not focused or was not corrected to why they were doing it and to who they were doing it and the reliance on who they needed to rely upon. And so the result of the matter or the resultant state that occurred after the matter or after the effort that one makes is the result of what happened right in the beginning of it. Right in the beginning of it. And it's what happened. It's about the heart. how the heart conceives of the matters and of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Ibn Ata'illah is getting at. That in the end of it all, if you seek something through Allah, it's not difficult. Meaning that you're going to accept what occurs. Even if it's failure, you're going to accept it. You're going to accept it. You're going to try harder next time. You're going to try harder, but you're going to accept it. And nothing proves easy if you seek it through yourself. Nothing proves easy if you seek it through yourself, because the self is deficient and in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're needy servants, and we don't have strength and might at all. That belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strength and might belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is good for us is determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not determined by ourselves. What is good for us is determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala solely, and is not determined by ourselves. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ emphasized the praying of istikhara on matters that we don't know or that we want to choose. Matters that we want to choose, we rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us through it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us through it, because what is good for us is determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He determines what is good for us. And so a failure is taken in that light. A failure is taken in the light for one who relies on Allah. A failure is taken in the light that this is what Allah wants from me at this moment, and the acceptance of it. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me. I've applied the effort, I made the effort, I got the skill set, I learned the skill set, I applied the effort to it, and it still didn't turn out in the way that I wanted, but it turned out in the way that Allah wanted, and one accepts it. One accepts it. And then one moves on. Or one may look at it and say, well, I think I was deficient in this and this, so I'll try harder, and maybe perhaps this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted this failure for me to correct something within myself, or within the effort, or within the intention. So the result is like this because Allah wants me to focus on this, to correct this aspect of it. That's the servant who's connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the servant who's connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He looks and he examines and he sees that everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he thinks along that lines. That is the servant traveling towards Allah, and it's the servant who wants something from his Lord. He wants something from his Lord. And so he looks at the matter right at the beginning of it. He looks at his matter right in the beginning. Look at what his state and the state of his heart in the matter before it actually starts. He looks at it. So that he's not disappointed in the end with himself or ultimately with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us, guide us, forgive us, have mercy upon us, forgive our elders, our parents, give them good health and long life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who have passed away, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them His mercy, His maghfirah and His shade on that day when there's no shade except His. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us openings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us success. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive those who have passed away. Have mercy upon those who are sick. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal them and cure them. Those who are faced with difficulty, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove their difficulty and make it easy for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in knowledge and practice of the deen. Increase us in following the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and guide us, cause us not to be a fitna to those who are around us, and cause those who are around us to be a fitna towards the Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our homes amongst the homes of the believers, and make our last words our best words. Subhanaka wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Thank you for listening to The Hikam with Shaykh Zahir Bacchus. Help Seekers Hub spread the light of guidance to millions around the world by supporting us through monthly donations by going to seekershub.org/donate. Your donations are tax deductible in the US and Canada.